Hello and welcome to another edition of Straight from the Training Ground, the podcast we share our love for the beautiful game and the people out in their communities doing beautiful things. We're very glad to have with us today our special guest, Makel Rasheed. He was most recently signed by South Georgia Tormenta FC in USL 1, but he has also played for Nashville City FC, USL 2. Got that out for you. With one of our mutual friends there, Scott Wells. He played collegiately at the University of Indianapolis. He went on to star at Xavier as an All-Big East selection as a center back. He was a 2023 MLS Super Draft pick by Nashville. And he also recently went back to Xavier to do a little coaching, which you might get into here in a little bit, while recovering from an injury. So, Makel, first of all, really happy for you. Glad to hear you were just recently signed by Tormenta FC.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a long year and a half since the injury, and God, thankfully, he's blessed me with an opportunity to sign with Tormenta, so I'm happy about that.
Well, we're really happy to hear that too, so we're happy for you. And before we get into everything else, I guess just real quick, I want to tell everybody about a little bit about the whirlwind kind of situation. You hear you're getting picked up by someone all of a sudden. Mm-hmm. What was that experience like for you here recently?
Honestly, like you said, I was coaching a bit earlier in the year at Xavier, getting some treatment done just for the groins. And then I kind of stumbled upon going to Asheville again. I've played at Asheville for 2 years, kind of throughout the 2021 to 2023. And then I wasn't even, picked for the roster this year, but I know Scott, he's a good guy. So I asked him, hey, as you know, I'm coming from injury. Do you mind if I come in there and kind of get some game fitness and, kind of dust off the cobwebs off the cleats and get back to playing? And he invited me, which I'm so thankful for. And I kind of gained my confidence back, got some fitness back. And then I was able to get a trial here at Tormenta. And then within a week and a half, they signed me.
Tremendous, man. That's great. So, and I'm sure you're excited, but also probably a little crazy to go from one place to another and pick up and move to the South Georgia area. But again, that most recently just happened, right? Within a couple weeks.
Yeah, that literally happened. I want to say 2 weeks ago. So within the span of 4 months, I've been living in 4 different states: Maryland, Cincinnati, or Maryland. Ohio, North Carolina, and now Georgia. So
life as a professional, huh?
I know. It's crazy.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about, let's go back to growing up. What was your background like? When did you get introduced to soccer? Did you play any other sports growing up? Tell everyone a little bit about that.
So, yeah, I want to say from anywhere to where I could basically walk, I was playing soccer. My family coming from Cameroon and some European and France as well. They introduced me to soccer very early. So I wanted to say I started at 3, but didn't really get into anything competitive until around 5. I dabbled in flag football, wasn't the biggest in the whole tackling and getting hurt and stuff, a little bit of a baby there. But and then I dabbled in basketball as well, just because I was a little bit taller than everybody else. But I just remember my first basketball game ever, my mom left, I guess, to go to the car or something. I thought she left, and I ran off the field and started crying after her. So I stuck with soccer pretty early. Yeah.
So you have a big family background, it sounds like, though, in soccer as well, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
And just for anybody who doesn't know, you said you're a little taller than everybody. Makel's 6'4", so you're a pretty tall guy. So
yeah. Some people say 6'5". Anytime I'm in the airports, people always ask me, they're like, basketball, right? I'm like, no, soccer.
Center back.
Center back. Yeah. And people always say that, I'm wasting my height. And I was just like, only if you knew,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So further along as you're growing up, what was your path kind of like, as you got older?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you got into the club, at some point or academies, MLS Next, those kind of things throughout high school. Mm-hmm. You obviously went on to play in college. Tell us a little bit about your pathway in the United States to becoming a professional player.
Yeah. So I grew up playing for Bethesda. And then around 13 or 15, I joined the Bethesda Academy, which was DA at the time. I think now it's MLS Next.
Yeah.
I was there. I was with the academy for, I want to say, 2 to 3 years. And then unfortunately they let me go. And then I moved to a club in Virginia, McLean, which was just club. And then I kind of really found my footing there, my confidence. I think, I was playing with such great players, the Kevin Paredes, the Brian Keos, the Gabe Siegels, who are now in the MLS or playing in Germany. I just remember I was so envious of those guys. But again, everyone's story is different. And I think getting older now, I'm kind of seeing that. And then I moved on to Baltimore Armor for a year, but that was just too far of a drive. The commute was just 45 to an hour every single day with traffic. So, my story growing up was definitely up and down in terms of, I was at the academy and then I got dropped a level, and then I went to a different academy in Baltimore and then I dropped a level again. So it's always been this up and down for me for sure.
This episode is brought to you by our good friends at Salt Athletic. Make sure you check out the science behind their amazing boot bags and goalkeeper glove bags to keep the stink out. Yeah, but I think that's what makes it interesting. That's really why I was looking forward to sitting down and chatting with you like this, because I think it's important for kids and everyone out there to know that, you've had what you would say maybe a different pathway to get to where you wanted to be. Mm-hmm. But I think that's realistic, right? And I'm sure that happens to a lot of people. It's not always the way it's not always a linear progression, I guess, Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot to say for your perseverance, and you still have a long ways to go. I'm sure you have a lot of goals you still want to accomplish, but 100%. Especially for kids playing, today, it's great to hear that, you've had some setbacks, which we'll get into some more, but mm-hmm. you still progressed through all that and still achieved some of your goals. So that's what I think makes you a really interesting story, to be honest with you. I know it might be difficult at times, but I think that's really great to hear that.
I appreciate that.
But what would you say have been, your one or two biggest challenges as a player overall?
Oof. I would say injuries for sure. I think any soccer player would say that, the worst part of the game is getting injured, not being able to play the sport that you love and having to rehab. And a lot of times that can be a one-man battle. Normally, you're on the field with 10 other guys and you have to figure out how to solve problems with 10 other people. But then, when you're injured, it's just you and the therapist or whoever it might be. So that's definitely a long road on your own. But it does grow mental toughness, I would say, like you said, perseverance as well. And I think you start to learn some of your strengths that you didn't know that you had when you're away from the game. As much as it does suck to be away, you also learn a lot about yourself. And back to the other point that you just said, everyone's story is different. And I think obviously at the time I was young and a little bit naive to think that, my pathway was going to be the same as everyone else's. And the grass is not always greener on the other side, but also at the same time is God always makes sure that everyone's story is different and everyone's testimony is different to help other people that might be going through the same thing.
Very true. Yeah, I love to hear that. I'm going to pull up a nice article the Tormenta had about you recently being signed. And while I pull that up on a more positive note now, share with everybody a little bit, what are, one of the two things you're most proud of so far as a player?
I would say even, the beginning of this podcast, you bringing up perseverance, which is a word that Ian Cameron used here at Tormenta. He kind of mentioned that as well. I would say also a leadership role that I've learned to develop over the years. I think early in college, I didn't have that type of mentality. And I think I've learned that and I've seemed to help other guys. And I think other people striving around me also makes me happy, but also makes me strive as well.
Kind of pushes you a little bit more.
Yeah, 100%.
So along those lines and with your setbacks, we'll get into coaching here in a little bit. I just am curious to hear, your experiences. I'm sure you haven't thought too much about coaching yet, but you have done that recently. But before we get into that, what is your advice if you could go back and talk to your younger self, or advice to younger kids out there right now who, they all have that dream to be a professional player. Mm-hmm. You've been through, like you said, a lot of the ups and downs along the way, through college and as a professional. What is your advice to them right now?
It might sound cliche, but I would definitely say do not give up. As many times that I've heard in the last year and a half, especially with age, I'm not getting any younger, obviously, and I've been 2 years out of college, and
Me neither, buddy.
with all the injuries that I've had, people are asking me like, hey, like what's the next step? Like, what are you going to do after? And I think obviously you have to think about that naturally, but don't give up until you have nothing left in the tank. I would also say don't compare your journey to someone else's, because it can be very different. What's another one?
Can I ask you real quick? Do you think,
Yeah.
being as young as you are, do you think social media influences that right now too with kids? Like reflecting and viewing themselves, comparing them to others.
100%, because this is a side note. I think even in relationships, no matter if they're platonic or not, I think social media it can serve a great purpose, but also you start to compare to Yamin Lamal, for example. He's 17 years old,
Yeah.
killing it in the Champions League and the Euros. At 17, I don't think I was even capable of half the things that he could do right now.
Yeah.
And if I'm looking at Instagram and I'm comparing to him, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like he's in Europe making all this money, and I'm here in the United States, not even on an academy team or an MLS next team, that's going to kill your confidence. And I would say confidence is one of the biggest things, if not the biggest thing in soccer to have. Is confidence is your best friend.
Yeah, that's great advice. So I hope anyone that watches and listens, make sure you check that out from Makel. A lot of great experience and advice from you. We really like that. So most recently, where you're rehabbing, you and I met. We met a couple of years ago. For people who don't know, we didn't realize it, but I went and watched you at Asheville City through our mutual friend Scott Wells. Shout out to Asheville City, and Scott, he's a great guy. And I know he's done a lot to help you out along the way, and just a great team there, great town, great soccer community. But then fast forward a couple of years, you and I met at a coaching clinic. We were talking, and I didn't realize it was you. And I watched you at training and watched you play. And so you were coaching. So you went back to Xavier during your rehab stint for an injury, and you got into coaching a little bit. And I'm sure at your age is not something you were thinking about doing yet. But what are your thoughts on that? Did you enjoy it? It's a coaching. I've coached for a long time now. It's a very different perspective from playing. So what are your thoughts on that? Quick little hop into the coaching world.
Well, first I want to shout out the Blues. They're number one in the country right now. So shout out to the Blues, and also Xavier for always having that net that I can fall on. They brought me back. They helped me with my injuries. I was able to not only coach the guys, but I could train with them. I could lift with them and give them kind of my testimony of when I was in college to kind of help them through their time in college, especially like the freshman and the sophomore. But yeah, I think it was a really good time for me to kind of mentally kind of step back and to kind of get back into the game a little bit. I never wanted to coach as early as this, I will say. I had to learn a lot of things, the behind the scenes that as a player you never get to see. And then when I stumbled upon the opportunity to coach at your clinic, it was just, I was nervous. Like I'd never coached before, I never spoke in front of all these coaches. And I'm like, these guys have been coaching for 10 plus years. And this is my first clinic ever. But it was a good experience for sure. But I just knew, and one of my coaches, he kind of told me, he's like, listen, man, I've known you for 5+ years, and I can still see like there's a player in there. Like you're not ready to coach yet. Like you have time for coaching, but I want you to be able to look in the mirror 10 years from now and be like, hey, I gave it all that I could.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best things that anyone can ever do in anything that you do in life, is not to look back and have any regrets on, not trying to do something or things like that. It's give it everything you got. So let me ask you real quick, and then we'll get you out of here in a second. Did you make you appreciate things a little bit more as a coach now that you kind of see what goes on behind the scenes? You don't just roll out there to training.
Yes. I remember even telling John Higgins and Sean Mahoney, like, I did not know when I went home or I went to the CAF or I went back to my dorm to do homework or whatever the case may be, like you guys were here until 5 p.m., preparing for tomorrow's training session or looking at players on Y Scout or thinking about the next season ahead, or, having all these different guys with all these different roles. I had no idea as a player that this was going on. I just, next season you just show up at training and there'd be 5 different guys, but you don't know all the different things that they put in for that to happen.
Yeah, it's a different perspective, like I said, but I'd hold off on that for a while. I hope you keep playing for a long time, and let's postpone the coaching for a long time.
Me and you both.
So one last question, Makel. If you're just tuning in again, we're with Makel Rasheed, USL 1 center back, just recently signed with South Georgia Tormenta FC. He was an MLS draft pick by Nashville in 2023. And Makel, so what are your future goals? In a perfect world for Makel Rasheed, what would you like to accomplish long-term as a player?
I think long-term is to use my platform, one, to give the glory to God. I can't explain enough what he has done for me in this time, in this last year and a half, but my whole entire life, of giving me the strength, the perseverance, the wisdom to get through these challenges and to get on the other side of that hill. I have a great relationship with God, and I think I've told him, if you get me through this injury and this next year and a half, I'm going to use my platform to show all the things that you've done for me, and to let everyone know that if you're going through something similar, that he can also help you. I also want to obviously climb the ladder. Obviously USL 1, I think, is the third or fourth division in the United States. So I want to climb that ladder and get as high as possible. I still feel like I have a lot left in the tank, and get back to the MLS or go to Europe if that's possible, to continue to fulfill my dreams. So.
Well, we really appreciate it. We're going to be looking forward to it. We support you here. We love, like I said, love to hear that you signed recently with the Tormenta, and just keep up the great work. Kids out there, if you're watching this or if you ever tune in to watch this, I hope you, if you learned anything or take away anything from this interview with Makel, I hope you listen to the perseverance and the challenges he's went through as a player, and just remember that, it's not always just a simple path. You go to high school and college and you get drafted to be a pro, is it, Makel?
No, not at all. It's not that easy.
But sometimes that makes it more worthwhile, and it makes you appreciate things. So we really appreciate your time, Makel. Best of luck this season with the Tormenta, and keep up the great work. We're going to be following you. So once again, thanks a lot. Until next time, straight from the training ground.